Great. One more time, join me in congratulating Justin Kauflin for the fantastic conference. And I haven't actually done any of these Q&As with Artists After Show for a really long time. But when we were talking to the Abu Dhabi Festival about who's going to moderate this one, I volunteered. This one felt very personal to me. My dad is a jazz trumpeter. I grew up on Long Island in New York, where Clark Terry used to also live. And the very first jazz concert I went to was actually a Clark Terry show when I was about, 7 or 8 years old. And then I guess it was around 2014 or so, when Clark's health was starting to get a little bit more challenging, the Jazz Foundation of America held a benefit fundraiser for him at St. Peter's Church. And that was the very, very first time I encountered Justin's music, and as well as the incredible film that they made about their relationship, Keep On Keeping On. So I was very excited when he was programmed to play in our room here at the Arts Center, and I wanted to, I guess, start with that part of the story because Clark is such a sort of a linchpin in your biography, and he's just one of several really incredible mentors that you've had. They've started to say jazz is America's classical music, but in many cases it still comes down to the oral tradition and passing on the tradition from musician to musician. And between Clark Terry and Quincy Jones and Mulgrew Miller, you've had some really incredible mentors. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about those relationships and about sort of the importance of that sort of generational transfer of musical knowledge.
So in terms of those three individuals, Clark, like I mentioned earlier, I met while I was at university, and at that time Mulgrew Miller was the head of the program. And so the two of them were around, and I was thrilled to be able to meet Mulgrew, but that same year, a friend of mine named Al Hicks, who ended up directing this film, Keep On Keeping On, he said, hey, I'm going over to CT's and I want to bring you over there and you can meet him. And I thought, oh, wow, okay. That's kind of wild. And went to go spend time with him. And, I, looking back, recognize how deliberate Clark was about mentoring young musicians. He was quite passionate about that, and it was a mission of his. But from my perspective, I thought, oh, well, I'm going to hang out with this guy, and we'll, listen to records and eat some good food, and of course he would school us. He would teach us a lot of things. He even kind of formed a small group of musicians from the school, and we'd go over to his house and we'd play a bunch of songs that he wanted us to work on and would show us. And it really sort of dawned on me later how that was at the forefront of his mind, being a mentor and nurturing all of us. And it formed so much of who I am in terms of being a performer, but also not just as a musician, but even how he carried himself on and off the stage. I was able to witness that. He was still traveling and working. And that was big, to be able to see it in action. And it was a similar experience with Mulgrew. He was somebody I looked up to very much and got to spend more and more time with him. My thing with Mulgrew, I was maybe more deliberate in that relationship because he was a quiet person. But if we had class, at the end of class, what he would do is he would immediately gravitate towards the piano as everybody else was packing up. And he'd be minding his own business, just playing, and I would always kind of hide on the other side of the piano and listen as long as I could before he would see me and stop, And I followed him everywhere. Every gig he did in New York, I would go see. And again, there was just such a beautiful humility to him that I learned a great deal from. You speak through the music, and his reputation, I think, preceded him. And then Quincy, I met through Clark. Because we were both students of Clark's. Quincy was really his first student, and I ended up being one of his last students. And we met at Clark's house, and it was quite unexpected, and is still something that I can't really believe is real. The fact that I know this person who's such a legendary figure. And again, I think humanity is what comes through with all three of those guys. How much they genuinely care for other people, and really, I feel like that's at the heart of the music that I want to make. Is that the music should reflect your selflessness and your interest in others and actually making a connection. That was Mogu's big thing. Because my main goal when I get on stage is to make one connection. If one person is moved by what I'm doing, then I'm very happy, and that stuck with me.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about the humanity as being the main thing that you learn from them as opposed to sort of musical lessons. One of the things that struck me in the set as you were introducing the song, I was thinking a lot about the construction of the set and the song choices with originals, with Beatles songs, with Sufjan Stevens, with Mogu songs, and so on. But within the sort of the construction of the set, I think more than a lot of instrumental artists, there felt like a very strong autobiographical strand to it. I feel like it's not often you come away from a jazz show where you feel like I have some insight really into the musician that you're seeing. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how you think about the construction of the set and your choice of songs and repertoire.
That's very gratifying to hear, because I think essentially what I'm hoping to do is share myself with the audience through the show, and that's where the music comes from for me. It comes from just who I am, what's important to me. So on a superficial level, if it's not my music, it's music that has affected me personally, like the Sufjan tune, and Strawberry Fields has been in my life for such a long time. It is very personal, even though it is somebody else's piece. And that's another goal for me, is to just share the music that has moved me, and hopefully it can do something similar for others. But yeah, in terms of it being autobiographical, I think that's just inherent in the fact that, well, I'm sharing this piece because these are the feelings that I've been having for the last few years, being on the road. So Coming Home and Lost are definitely part of that, and Country Fried. The songs off of the record have specific places in mind. So, that I think is the goal, and I'm glad that it comes through in any way, either with one particular song or with the whole set. That definitely means a lot to me.
Great, and it definitely does come through. So I think everybody in Abu Dhabi knows that the Special Olympics start this week, and we're thinking a lot about sports and about teamwork, and you're working in sort of the most classic of jazz teams, the piano trio, right? And piano trios can have so many different forms, but they have that combination of both the interplay and support from each member of the trio, but also they're a little bit exposed, and each of the soloists really stands forward. Within that, your sound, especially given who some of your mentors are, who were coming much more from a swing and bop, and sort of a very muscular approach to playing. In the case of Mogu, your sound is very different, and you leave a lot of space in there, and there's a different kind of lyricism. That's such a different sound. So I'm wondering, sort of as a trio, how did you define your own sound with these musicians, and is your trio sound with this trio the same as with other trios, and do you adapt that, or is that something that's really a factor of these three individuals on stage?
I think at the core, there's definitely, as it's my music, and the things that do take precedence would be the melodic nature of it, and that is in any of our hands, but what direction the music takes is where the different kind of configurations of the trio can have a pretty profound impact on how the music comes together. This trio, I was particularly excited to travel with. Evan, the bassist, and I have been playing together for some time now. But Jimmy is a musician that I've been a fan of for a long time. We were aware of each other. He's a few years younger. We had kind of ran in similar circles. We did similar jazz camps when we were younger, and so I kind of was aware of him, and then saw him playing more and more in New York. And I've always been just captivated by his playing, and I think something that I really cherish in a drummer is their ability to have the technique to do all sorts of things, but the musicality to know how to execute those things in the best way possible. I mean, he's playing so much drums all night, but you would hardly know because he's so supportive, and that's something that I love. I mean, I mean, I say that about a drummer, but I mean that's about anybody, and it's been really fun to see how he reacts to the song or to what's going on, and vice versa. I then react to what he's doing. I love. It's a challenge to do trio, but I really love the collaborative nature. And when you have two guys like these that are listening like better than I am, it makes for every night being something new and exciting. And I think the personality really comes into it when you have a small group like this.
Great. I've got more questions, but before I get to those, I want to open it up to all of you. I'm sure you've got some questions as well. We've got ushers with microphones on either side, so if anybody has any questions, please raise your hand, and we can get the microphone over to you. Yeah, over in the second row on this side. Yeah, no, but it's good for posterity. We're recording all of this.
Hi, and I'm very happy to be able to be here and listen to you all guys. And I'm wondering where is your dog?
Yeah. So she has a substitute who's sitting on the piano right now. She is 12. She's on vacation, is what I like to say. She's hanging out. She's back in Virginia with my parents, and our schedule has been pretty rigorous up until this point. We were in Europe just yesterday, and just all of the flying. It's a little much for her. So she's enjoying her time, doing what she likes best, is just hanging out with my mom.
Up in the back.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. From a pianist's perspective, I was really impressed by how you direct the trio with your body movement, and even how you sit around, which is kind of the opposite way that it's usually. So I was just really puzzled. How do you go about learning a song you like or composing a song? Do you see the chords in your brain, or do you just feel the scales, or how does that work?
So it's all with this music. It's all by ear. Classical music, I do use the braille because there's so many details that you can't get by just hearing a pianist play it. So with classical, I do use braille, which is available. But everything else has been by ear, and it's I think a lot of times it's the same for Evan and Jimmy as well. It's a muscle that you can practice and you can develop. I had a decent ear when I was younger, but I had great teachers that helped me focus in on that. And I think good ear training plus good memorization is the key to being able to kind of have that freedom to learn. YouTube is my best friend because I just type the song in, and 20 different versions of that song will pop up, and I can learn, what key it usually is played in, and kind of figure out from there. And the method actually that worked for me really well was the Suzuki method, usually for string players, and violin was my first, so very, very thankful for that.
So you grew up playing violin and piano classically, and then you transitioned to jazz. You're still playing classical as well, and do you have any plans to record and perform that publicly, or do you leave that as your personal pursuit at this point?
Classical is something I love very much, but I only play in the safety and privacy of my home.
think we've got time for one or two more questions. Yeah, in the fourth row right over there.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much. It made me very happy to just sit here and listen
Thank
to
you.
you speak the music. So when I was listening to a few of the pieces, I was actually trying to close my eyes and just trying to imagine what kind of image your music would conjure up. And I have a question about how you compose. So, for example, if you say the musical ideas you have as like paint, and whatever you make out of it as like painting, do you have like a certain musical idea in your mind, for example, a certain palette, and then try to work from there, or do you have a painting in mind and then try to mix the colors however you want and get there?
Usually, I would say, if I were to compare it to painting or art, it would be more like I might get just a short idea, a short phrase, I think, and it's usually the harmony and the melody together. As a pianist, I have the luxury of being able to sit down and I call it doodling, where maybe a 4-bar phrase just kind of sticks out to me, like, oh, I like this, I like the movement, and that would be sort of just an outline of something, really, or not even really of the whole picture, just of one little piece. And I think I work out from there. And the color is there, but it's more subconscious. It's not something I generally think about as much when I'm composing. Keys tend to have specific colors. A minor is red for me, just for whatever reason. But then the related major, the C major, is always this weird blue. E is very bright. It's almost white. So those kind of occur, and sometimes I end up shifting songs because I think I don't like that color, and I'll transpose the whole song to make it a color that I like better. So I mean, I guess it's a mix of kind of going back and forth. One influences the other. Yeah.
Great. I think we've got time for one more. I haven't really grabbed anybody from this side of the room. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Yeah, right over there.
It's not really a musical question, but you said you've been traveling a lot and it's influencing your music and what you like to come up with this for the album. A lot of tourism is going places to see things, so I'm wondering, what's tourism for you and how do you see the places that you're visiting?
That is a great question, and it's actually one reason why I was not looking forward to touring when that kind of opportunity arose. Because I thought, gosh, I mean, I fly all this time on an airplane, I get out, and it's a place. But you're right, people are always like, oh, the mountains are so beautiful, and the scenery. And I remember being very bitter during a family trip to Hawaii, because it was all of that. We hiked for like 3 hours, and I'm already like in a pretty bad mood because the terrain is not like, I don't know, it's not super accommodating for a blind person, And so go stumbling, finally get to the top, and everybody's like, oh, wow, like you can see the ocean from here, and I'm like, well, screw this, I'm going home. I'm tired, But I have to say that something that I've learned through traveling more and more is that every place has a feeling to it, for sure. And the more time I get to spend in a place, the more I recognize what that vibe is. And yeah, of course, the climate has something to do with it, and the weather, and the surrounding area, just the wilderness. But for me, it always kind of boils down to the people. New York has an energy to it, and it's because of the people that are there. It's exciting, it's vibrant. Now I live actually in California, and it has kind of a little bit more relaxed feel to it, but it really is the people that kind of create that energy, that feeling. So that, I guess, is how I see things, and images do come to mind based on kind of what I am hearing. So that kind of has a role in it too, but this area is particularly colorful, I would say, if you're talking pictures. And I know, I mean, the guys we were driving in and they were saying that, you know, the buildings are all a lot, it's kind of monochrome. Or, you know, the buildings that we were driving by, you know, all kind of like sand colored and that was interesting to me because I think it's this mixture of so many things that come together in a city that kind of brings that color. And it's like very vibrant color. So I've been enjoying it.
Great. I think that's a beautiful note on which to close. So I want to thank everybody for staying and for contributing to the contribution. I want to thank Justin and Wendy for a great concert. On behalf of the Abu Dhabi Festival, we hope to see you both in the Arts and on outbound events. And have a very good night.
Thank you guys.
And you can meet Justin in the lobby. He'll be on Sunday seas in just a couple of minutes. Just let him cool off, relax, and we'll see you out there.